Hey everyone, welcome to After Effects Lesson 1, Part 4. I promise this is the last part, but in this video we're going to repurpose the footage that we used in Part 3, and I'm going to teach you how to do a couple of different kinds of effects. Before we get started, I just want to mention that within this lecture series we have pretty much put to use the 6 foundations of After Effects. So the 6 foundations that make up After Effects include 1. Composition, 2. Layers, 3. Animation or keyframes, 4. 3D, 5. Effects, and 6. Rendering. So in Parts 2, we talked about composition and layers. In Part 3, we talked about animation. We're not going to talk about 3D just yet, but in this part, we're going to talk about the effects now, and then, of course, rendering we did last part, and we will do in this part. Okay, so where we left off, we were on this render queue screen, so we don't need this right now anymore. So I'm going to go ahead delete our Forest Demo NFX from the render queue. So you just click on it and hit delete. And then I'm just going to go ahead and close the render queue. Okay, so here we have our composition that we just rendered. Now remember in part 2 I talked about the fact that more than one composition can exist in an After Effects project file. So now we are going to create a new composition without affecting this Forest Demo NFX. So we're going to go up to our project panel in our media effects bin, and we're going to create another composition again using the source footage from summerforest.mp4. So remember, we can do this a couple ways. We can right click, we can do new comp from selection, or we can drag this footage onto this little icon. I'm going to do right click, new comp from selection, and you can see that a new composition has opened without affecting our other composition. We can easily toggle back and forth, so make sure don't close out of Forest Demo NFX first. We are going to come back to that. If in the case you ever did accidentally close it, you can always reopen it by double clicking on the composition in our raw media storage bin. Okay, so again, to avoid confusion, we're going to go ahead and we're going to rename this composition to Forest Demo FX. So as you can probably tell, now we're going to be using some effects. If you still have your title action safe zones on like I do, I'm just going to go ahead and click that off. Okay, so now I have my Forest Demo FX, and I'm going to actually go ahead and delete this clip. So because we're going to use some of the same footage, or pretty much all the same footage from our previous composition, we're going to be able to do simple copy and paste and bring that footage along with the keyframes that we made into this new composition. Now before we do anything, I just want to show you the end result, what we're going for, what we're going to try to accomplish in this demonstration. So have a look here. Okay, so we're basically working with the same thing, breaking it down. From 0 to 1 seconds, we have the fade in, which we already keyframed in the last part. From 3 to 4 seconds, we have the introduction of the green tint. But then it's at the 5 to 6 to 7 second mark that we have a little bit of a change. We have a different effect we applied, but we're still doing a fade in and we're doing a scale up or a zoom in. And then we just have a simple fade out of everything from 9 seconds to 10 seconds. Now also notice that this time our graphic and our text are together. They're not separate layers, so we are going to be using the footage file that we imported that contains the graphic and the text instead of two separately. So let's get started. Okay, so since we already pretty much did the first couple seconds, we already did the fade in, we already did the introduction of the green solid, we're going to be able to just go back into our previous composition, our Forest Demo NFX, and we're going to be able to copy the audio, the summer footage, and the dark green solid. So we're going to go ahead and select all of those. So you can either select them one by one, or you can select them by holding down the command key or the control key and clicking all of them, or you can do a select like this. Either way works. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and copy those and paste them into our composition. Make sure that we have our current time indicator at the 0-second mark. Okay, so now that we have our layers pasted, we can see that they have retained all the keyframes that we programmed in our previous composition. And just for now, I'm going to mute the audio just so that as we play back, we don't have that unnecessary noise, but we have to make sure to unmute it when we're ready to render. I'm just going to go ahead and mute that. Okay, so I did not copy the text layers from the text and graphic layers from our previous composition because I want to use the footage one that has both the text and the graphic merged into one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop that on top of my green layer. Now you might be wondering, why is there black here? And that's because we're at 0 seconds, and remember we're starting with a fade in, so this is perfectly normal to see all black. We don't, let's refer back to our final product, we don't see our graphic now fading in until the 4-second mark. So I'm going to put my current time indicator at the 4-second mark, and I'm going to trim this layer to the 4-second mark. Okay, now just like we did with the other time in the other composition, our logo is definitely too big, so I'm going to play with the scale property just to make it smaller. That's good for right now. Okay, so now before we get into doing the effects animation, I just want to point out one thing. So before in class, I told you that the cool thing about Adobe products is that they can all speak to each other and that they can all be integrated into different programs. So let's pretend that we made this logo in Photoshop. And if you see, if we try to change the color, we can't do anything aesthetic with this. We can make it bigger, we can make it fade in, but we can't change any stylistic elements. Now, let's say that we wanted to make this a different color for some reason. That doesn't mean that we have to go back into Photoshop and re-export it and re-import it. Since we're dealing with the PSD files, any change that we make in Photoshop will automatically be made in our After Effects project. So let me show you an example. Now, you can do this with me. You don't have to. I'm not going to be asking you to do this for your assignment, but I just want to show you how Adobe products can integrate with each other. So I have this logo open in Adobe Photoshop, and so I'm going to change the color of this logo. So I'm going to tap on my on my layer. I'm just going to choose a color. I'm going to choose, I'll do like a blue color. Let's see, I'll just choose any kind of color. This is fine. And then I'm just going to fill in my logo with the paint bucket tool. Okay. So now obviously if I look, no change has been made. However, if I go ahead and I save this and I look, the color change that I implemented in Photoshop has automatically been made in After Effects. This is because we're using the PSD file, and Adobe is really awesome in that way that programs can communicate with each other. Now, of course, I don't want my logo to stay this color, so I'm going to go ahead and undo what I did. I'm going to save again in Photoshop, and then that will be able to sync in After Effects after a couple of seconds. Okay, so just want to show you a little cool trick. This might come in handy later on when we're working on our final projects. Okay, so anyway, let's look back at our After Effects FX demo. So let's see, so we have this logo kind of repeated in like multiple tile forms. So in After Effects, we have a whole effects and presets panel, which you can be found in your info panel. If you don't see it, make sure that in Windows we have effects and presets checked off. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it to about 28 is good. I'll stay at 28. I'm also going to use my Align tab, and I'm going to align it horizontally, and I'm going to align it vertically just to make sure. Okay, now I'm going to open my Effects and Presets window, and there are a lot of different things that you can experiment with. There's hundreds of preset effects, but for this purpose, I'm going to choose the Tyler effect. So I'm going to go ahead and type Tyler into my search bar, and I'm going to drag it. You can drag it right onto your graphic, or you can drop it onto the layer. Either is going to work, so I'm going to go ahead and drop it onto my logo layer. Okay, so as you can see, that nothing really happened here yet, but a new window popped up in what was our project panel. Now remember, when I was giving the tour, I talked about how the project panel will also share space with the effects control panels. And if you didn't see the effect control panel up until this point, you should see it now after we applied the Tyler effect to our APEEK logo layer. So now you should be seeing the effects control panel where your project panel, where your raw media storage bin used to be. If for some reason you want to go back to that, you can easily toggle between the two of them by just scrolling with the mouse back and forth, or you can click on this double arrow and you can choose the project panel or go to your effects control panel. Okay, so in order to make this look like multiple logos, we're going to play with our scale keyframe. Now, anything that has one of these stopwatches next to it, that indicates that it can be keyframed. So I'm going to start by playing around just to see. Okay, so you can see that I am getting this tile effect, but it's only happening within this little box here. You can make this bigger by holding down the Shift button as you drag the sides of this out. That way our proportions are remaining equal. Now, if you have to If you have to fix your view so that you see that is perfectly fine. And we just want to make sure that we fill the screen. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to fit my window back to fit up to 100%. Okay, so now I'm going to, let's refer back to our Okay, so it seems like we start with smaller one. So I'm going to start with a scale of about 20%. I'm going to do my first keyframe. Now you can either keep keying from up here, or if you notice down here, an effects window came up, so you can use from over here too. Either works. I'm going to keep working up here. So I am going to scale at 20% at 4 seconds. I'm going to set my first keyframe. And then I am going to refer. So we go from 4 to 6 to 7 seconds. And I'm going to snap to the 7-second mark. And I am going to increase this to the point where we see like this. Okay. Now let's watch this. Now again, it's going to take some time for it to render. So if you're experiencing these lags like I am, it's completely normal. You can always go back and start over. You might have to do that a couple times. But it is completely normal to be having these lags. Okay, and since we're kind of dealing with a couple of different kind of motions, I'm just going to add an easy ease to these keyframes. I got this here by clicking on that U key. So I'm going to go up to animation, keyframe assistant, easy ease. It's going to have to render again, but that is okay. Let's watch it. Okay, and now if we go back to our final result, from the 4 to 5 second mark, we did have a slight fade in. So we do have to add an opacity keyframe. So I'm going to go to the 4 second mark. I'm going to snap to this keyframe. I'm going to hit U to hide my other keyframe, and then I'm going to hit the T key to open our opacity. So I'm going to change the opacity to 0, make a keyframe, and then at the 5 second mark, I'm going to put it back to 100. And now we should see we have a slight, play it back. So it looks pretty similar, not perfect, but it looks pretty similar. Play it back. Looks good. Okay. And then the last thing we have to do is to make sure that this logo also fades out from the 9 second mark to the end of the video. So we're going to go ahead and do another opacity. So we're going to start at 100%. Remember, don't hit the stopwatch again. If we hit this, all of our keyframes are going to disappear. So we want to use the add button here. So we're going to add a keyframe and then go to 0%. Now we should be able to watch this through. Might lag a little bit, that's completely normal. Okay, and now let's unmute our audio track and let's listen. Okay, perfect. Now that we've completed this, we're going to go up to File. We're going to export, add to our render queue. Going to output it as Forest Demo. Make sure that it is going in the folder we want it to go in, which it is. So I'm going to save this, hit render. I'll see a little preview, and then I'm going to wait for the ping at the end to tell me that it is completed. There's the noise, and then if I look in my Finder folder, I should see Forest Demo. I should see now I have my Forest Demo NFX and my Forest Demo FX. Now when you open this, you're going to have to go through the same conversion process as the Forest Demo NFX. So you want to open it in QuickTime, let it convert, and then save the converted version. So that wraps up our first After Effects lesson. I want to show you what I'm asking you to do for your homework assignment. So I'm basically asking you to recreate exactly what we did in both Demo NFX and Demo FX. And I'm asking you to recreate these two videos. Here's the first one. And the second one. So I want you to recreate these videos as best as you can. On YouTube, on Blackboard, there are all the materials that you need. I have posted all the files, and also there is a link to a YouTube video where you can view the end result as many times as you need to. The one on YouTube has sample on it. Please do not recreate the text for sample. Just do the best you can. If you ever need any help, please reach out to me. I am happy to help via email, via Skype for Business. Just be aware that both of these are due by Thursday, March 26th at 11:59 p.m. And then by March 27th at 10 a.m., I will have posted the next new lecture series, After Effects Lesson 2. And then we will go from there. So that is a wrap on this first After Effects Lesson 1 lecture series. Please let me know if you have any questions or any concerns. And thank you again for watching.